and welcome everyone to our, I think it's our 8th installment of the JP Enrichment series. From all of us in the JP family, we truly appreciate it. For me, we kind of decided who was going to chat to you, and in the end I won, and I'm quite chuffed because I grew up listening to the likes of Phil Liggett and Paul Sheeran commentating the tour, and it's a real privilege to be able to interview you as a fellow JP old boy as well. I thought what I'd do is show a short clip.
Bermuda's got himself out in front. Could he defy the odds? Impey is fighting his way back. He gets home. It's Impey who wins. It's celebration for all of South Africa.
One of the guys on the lucky end of that stick today, so really happy to have this yellow jersey, and it's a great moment.
Well, it couldn't have gone to a nicer guy. It just typifies what the culture of this organisation is about, matemanship, and it's a team, and you deserve it, mate.
Thanks very much, Terry.
Now you have got a lion doll, dear little boy.
He was 2012. He was one of the last riders we signed.
Not sure how well that came across to everyone, but I know you've done a lot in your career, and some of those scenes were from quite a few years ago. But you know, from a South African point of view, that's probably what you're most famous for. How does it feel watching some of those clips?
You know, like when I look back at 2013 was the year that I had the yellow jersey, which seems like nearly a lifetime away. It nearly seems like like a career away. But yeah, you know, that moment there was pretty much probably the biggest moment I've ever experienced in cycling. It was, it's the holy grail of cycling. It's, and now I appreciate it more as the years have gone by, and the more and more Tour de France's that I've done, you realize how special it is, because you realize how difficult it is to actually achieve, to even be in that position to wear the yellow jersey. So, that's something I'm really, really proud about. And, that for me will always be probably the highlight of my career. But then fast forwarding to last year's, stage win in the Tour de France, that was like the icing on the cake. I think, my career's, like you said, I've won a few things in the middle parts of my career as well. But, something significant like the Tour de France and getting my own stage victory there. I've had a lot of assists. I've helped a lot of people win a lot of races, but to finally get my own stage win, which from the breakaway was, that was the icing on the cake. I think after that, I was really like, it kind of completed my career. It kind of made it really like all come together.
Daryl, I was walking around the staff. We don't have a staff room in COVID. We're in the big hall trying to social distance. But I asked a few people, what do you think? What did you like to find out from Daryl? And one of the questions was, the emotion that the riders show for winning a stage. I mean, 21 days of a race, and they win a stage, and it feels like the biggest thing in their lives. Do you want to just chat around what it means to win a stage at the Tour de France, a race like the Tour de France? Because obviously there's a race within a race, and a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. But a lot of the guys are competing every single day for a stage. You want to just chat around why the guys get so emotional?
Well, look, the Tour de France is the third biggest watch sporting event on the globe. Then you have the Olympics, and obviously I think the Soccer World Cup and things like that. But it is the biggest. In cycling terms, the biggest race, the most watched. It's got the most pressure, the most media, the most fans. It's really a race that can set you up for life, which I've experienced. So I think we all understand the importance of it. And while you want to be a good teammate, and while you want to be, doing your job for the team, in the back of your mind, there's an opportunity here for you to actually achieve something for yourself, and it's something that can set you up. So I think you've got that pressure within from yourself to also realize it's a rare opportunity. Every year, that I've been on this team, I've been selected for the Tour de France, and every year it comes with the same questions. Young guys come to me and say, Daryl, you're definitely in for the Tour de France. And that's something I've never, ever taken for granted, because I never ever think I'm going to be automatically in the Tour de France team. Number one, to make the Tour de France team, we're a team of about 25, 26 riders. They take the best 8, regardless of who you are, what you've done in the past. It's the best 8 at that moment that is going to be ready for July. So there's the race within the team already to get there. Then it's the race of when you get into the Tour de France to achieve the team's objectives. And, that's a lot of the times is putting your own personal ambitions aside to achieve the team's ambitions. And really for us, I had 2 stages in that Tour de France last year, which was that I could target, that the team said, listen, you're free to go for something on these days. And I botched the first day. I was kind of a little bit sleeping in the beginning of the breakaway, went quite easily. And then I knew the next day was my last chance. And then I knew after that I'd be having to fill my role within the team. But I think like last year's stage, when although I've come pretty close in the past, I think that last year's stage victory was so emotional because I think I'd achieved my goal. Like it was something that I not dreamt about, but it was something that I knew I was capable of achieving, but I knew I was also running out of time. Like as I get older in the peloton, there's no doubt about it. I'm getting near the end of my career. And while it's great to every year go to the Tour de France and be selected for the team, being selected for the team wasn't fulfilling me anymore. And I think, stage victory was something that was really driving me to get there. And like I said, that feeling of, that this could be my last Tour de France. Maybe there's a young guy who, when I was young, I kicked out an older guy on our team. I took his spot in the Tour de France, and I remember that older guy was just like, well, I'm one of the old guys. How's this young guy coming here and just taking my spot? So I know that will eventually happen to me. That's the evolution of the sport. There's always young guys coming in that are going to be better. So I think it's all of those factors pushed into one thing. And when you get that opportunity when I knew I was in that breakaway and I knew this is my moment, if I don't win today, I might never, ever win a stage in the Tour de France. So it's all that big build-up from the years and years of, trying to make selection, trying to be in the team, trying to fulfill your role as a team player, then trying to put your personal ambition in there, then trying to make sure on that day you're on fire, that you're not tired from the days before, helping your teammates, and you actually blow your chance anyway. So I think when it all comes together, it's all of those emotions, and that's why it's so big to win the Tour de France, and that how far it hits back home, how far it reaches, where, your phone is just going ballistic. It's just so many things are happening at that point, and that's when you realize how big it is, because, you see the next day, front page of every newspaper in the sports sections, there's a picture of you, and it's just amazing the reach that a race like the Tour de France has. So I think that's why everybody, if they get the chance to win a stage, it's amazing.
And Daryl, you won that stage wearing your South African colours. Was that quite a cool thing?
Oh, look, I've always the one thing that was always missing from my results I had was being South African champion.
Yeah.
And I
could you win the time trial champion sort of 10 years in a row.
I've won the time trials, individual time trial about 9 times now. But the road race was always something that was like I could never ever win. It was just I always messed it up or I was outnumbered. But I finally won it 2 years in a row. And last year at the Tour de France, I think when I got to that point in the race, I get emotional talking about it still, because it was the French national holiday too, and I was coming into the final 200 meters, and it wasn't even something I'd thought, okay, if I win, I'm going to do this or that. It was more I think I was just so proud of winning in this jersey, because the jersey, number one, meant a lot to me, and then it also meant I knew it inspired a whole bunch of other people, youngsters back home. And I just wanted to show this, South Africa, we can do it, And I think it was, And afterwards, guys were like, geez, you even pointed to your flag. It was and I thought, geez, I automatically just did that. And I think it's because I'm proud of where I've come from. I'm proud of being a South African. I'm proud of, racing on the circuit there where there's only a few of us. And I think I'm proud of the way that how my career is just, I finally got up to that level.
I watched it live, and I know it was massive in South Africa, and obviously within the JP community, people went crazy. For those that don't understand, if you win your national title, you get to race in your colours. So I think that made it even more special, probably for Daryl. Daryl, let's take a step back quickly. What have you been up to in lockdown? You're in Spain, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, we're in Spain. So, I mean, we've been here since the start of it. So, yeah, we're probably about 2 weeks ahead of South Africa in terms of lockdown. But, finally things are starting to loosen up for us. We're able to ride outside. We're able to take the kids just to the, like the open spaces in the park. Obviously, they're not allowed to jump on anything or swings or anything like that, which is quite difficult and quite new for them. But in terms of lockdown, I mean, it's been pretty. We've had to adapt to a new way of life for sure. Training indoors was already the first part, but while we didn't have much racing coming up, it was quite easy just to keep a little bit fit, but not put too much pressure on myself. I think lockdown for us was great as a family. Even we got a chance with our kids to do homeschooling. And it's in Spanish, so. My wife and I were also forced to learn a bit more Spanish. We were quite, it's quite interactive with the kids now because there's all Zooms, there's all things like that with the classes. And, sometimes we have to sit in on those to understand what's going on. So that kept us busy. But I will say that we're quite tired of doing homeschooling. It's quite a job with two small boys. And then we still got the third one he's only 1 year old. So it's quite a challenge at home. I think we've found a new respect for numerous people, teachers, I think we've just all realized how fast our lives were, the pace, we made this pace that actually wasn't necessary. I think, we used to be like, we've got to get the kids to school, we've got to get the kids at 5, and now we're actually just like, why could we not go out for like a lunch when the kids were at school? Because we had to be back at a certain time. Now we're like thinking, geez, we were like a little, you're like a bit, you've stepped back and you've actually seen like, hey, if I take a step back here and actually just look at everything's actually should be quite calm. We've made this, this cycling and get back, and you've got to have your special time to recover, and then then this one wants to do that, and so I think it's been great in that way for us that we're actually able to like now just reset the clock a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like that for everyone, and I assume you've been able to get back to basics, and now you've got a bit of an idea of what the racing calendar might look like. So I suppose that the pressure's back on you, and you've got to get out there.
Yeah, look, I mean, the team was pretty relaxed during this whole phase. They were quite good about it, saying, "Listen, guys, we don't know what's happening, but do what you can do what's best for you, do what's best for your family. Once we start to go, we should have a few months or weeks to get ready for the first race, and we'll just assess it from there." So from that point, it's been great. And then obviously now with the new calendar up, it's going to be pretty jam-packed at the back end of the season. We should start racing in August, hopefully. And then, the big build-up is going to be to the tour, although there's not going to be a massive build-up, but a lot of teams, a lot of riders in the same position.
Daryl, we got loads of people on here who are passionate cyclists, part of the JP community, and they've got some questions. We'll get to that a little bit later, some technical ones. But let's take a step back. Let's go back to your early days and back to South Africa and back to JP in particular. Daryl, tell us about your time at JP. Do you have any fond memories?
JP for me was, what I loved about JP, and I've appreciated more and more as the time's gone by, is I loved the tradition we had there. I loved like you had to wear your blazer buttoned up. I love things like that, and I love like the fact that like if you had a full colors blazer, you could walk through the paint hall. Those memories. Like I always think to myself, geez, it was pretty cool to have like if you really excelled or you did well, you were really appreciated or shown, that I guess that you were rewarded for it. The friends I made in JP was great. I think, I always look back at the time there, and, there wasn't moments where I was like, like school, I don't enjoy school. I think the whole community there, I think the way we could just be ourselves, I think at JP, which is pretty cool. Like, there obviously there were no girls at the school, but I felt like there was a real place where we were always just us. And, the fact that like there was still a good old boys community there. And like, I loved going to watch, if I had the chance to watch a rugby game when we played Cares in particular. I still remember when I came to the school for the open day, or like when I went to it with my brother with the JP Cares match, and I'd see the old boys on the other side and we'd shut black and they'd go white and we'd do all that. That to me was amazing, and that still like sticks out. And I think that the whole, for me, like when I remember going to Mrs. Grace for tennis, like on Fridays, we would always
you had full colors for tennis, Daryl?
I had full colors for tennis. And like Mrs. Grace, she was so down to earth, so much good value. I think we had so many good times just going away, and just like, when we played a home game, we'd make sure like we ate the good biscuits before the other teams came, like those are kind of things that just come to my mind. And it was just, I think that just showed you what Jeppy boys were like. They were just like, we just used to do, like, we used to get on with the job, enjoy ourselves, and have a good time. It was, I think
awesome. And Daryl, just talking, JP, you mentioned Mrs. Grace. I'll be sure to let her know tomorrow. I don't think she's on here that you mentioned her. Are there any other masters or teachers that you remember that had a bit of an impact on you?
Look, I loved accounting. I really enjoyed that part. So Mr. Wallendorf was probably, I remember going to Mr. Wallendorf's class all the time. I'd get on, crack on with the work. And I think Mr. Wallendorf always saw I was a guy who was quite into accounting. Like, he would just kind of let me do my own thing. I'd say, what exercise we're doing today? He'd teach the class. And because I was so into it, I was already like prepared, and I loved doing the work. And I think he enjoyed that. Like, you knew, okay, Daryl's fine. He was doing his thing, So Mr. Wallendorf for accounting. And then, Mr. Thompson was always someone that I kind of looked up to, because we were doing art class together. He used to ride his bike as well, and I always kind of looked forward to going to his class to have a chat. And it wasn't only about schoolwork or about anything. It was really about life. Like, I think he took life like pretty cruisy. So and there were stacks of teachers there that made an impact on my life. Like, there was Mr. Bell. It was the our computer thing.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Bell,
we had so many good times there too. It was, there was so many good teachers at JP. I don't want to kind of,
yeah, of course, yeah.
But I think all the teachers I went to kind of played a massive impact. I think, the funnest class to go to was Mrs. Grace. That was for sure.
I'll be sure you've mentioned it twice, Daryl. Daryl, obviously JP didn't have cycling. You'll be proud to know that a couple of passionate staff and boys. I see Aaron Heineke's on here, and a few of the parents. We started a mountain biking section of school. It's now an official sport. Aaron was our first full colors recipient for mountain biking last year. So it really is growing from strength to strength. But back when you were at school, obviously there was no cycling. I was at school, I was 2 years younger than you. I do remember there was talk of a great cyclist in the school, but it was never publicized. And that. Where did cycling start for you, Daryl? Talk us through how it happened.
Well, look, my father was a cyclist, and when I joined JP, I had all these ambitions to play rugby. I thought, rugby's going to be my thing. That is the big thing at JP, right? And I soon realized, after 2 practices, okay, rugby's not going to take me I'm not cut out for this. Then I played hockey and tennis, but my dad was always a cyclist, so it was kind of in the family. And then while I was doing all these other sports, my father just said to me, "Do you want to come for a mountain bike ride this weekend?" And that was it, basically. I went on the mountain bike and I thought, geez, this is amazing. Like, why haven't I been doing this? Like going for a proper ride. And I just kind of got hooked on it. And then I turned to the road probably 4 or 5 years later. But even at JP, we did try to put a little cycling group together. I think we got 1 or 2 rides in where the school actually allowed us to go. But, it's very difficult. Guys bringing bikes to school, and it wasn't really like, the school wasn't ready for that kind of thing. Like, where do you store these bikes and where do we ride from? We can't really ride from school. It's quite busy around there. But
you guys tried. I remember.
Yeah, but it's great. It's great that the school's actually done that, because like now you get that mountain bike spur league, and it's fantastic. I think like if anything can happen, it would be on the mountain bike for schooling, and that's awesome to see. And the fact that we've got some ambition in the school. And guys, last year I did a ride from my dad's shop, and a couple of the Jeppy boys actually came down there and presented me with a jersey, which was super cool from the Jeppy boys, from the cycling team there. So that was super cool to get. And I think the school, it's just fantastic to see how well they're doing. I think, I chat to a lot of, like, obviously I've still got friends from school, and just to see, you hear a lot of good things about Jeppy all the time, which is great. I think they're evolving really well. I think the sports facility has gone up tenfold since when I left, and that's awesome.
Well, Daryl, Mr. Matucci's online, Fabio. He's the master in charge of mountain biking, and I can assure you that it's only going to get bigger. The plans are there, so we'll keep you in the loop into how we go there. Daryl, you mentioned your dad. Obviously, everyone in the community knows your dad's shop down the road, Tony Impey Cycles. Do you have any advice for parents? And I'm not just talking cycling parents, just parents. How did your dad help you along? Do you have any advice for parents about how to help their sons along?
Look, my dad, obviously when he saw that there was a fire in me to be a cyclist, he supported that. I think, but there's a difference between supporting someone and putting pressure on someone to like, if I didn't want to go riding, my dad would go, fine, stay at home, it's fun. I used to train always before school, and I always used to say, wake me up at like 5 o'clock so we can do an hour and a half before school, and then I'll go to school. And my dad would be training at that time because before work, and he'd wake me up and go, if I said, oof, no, I'm tired, he'd go, okay, go to sleep. Not like, oh well, listen, man, you need to get out there and train. I think he let me it all came from my side. I think that like both my parents, my mom as well, they really like just let me be who I was. Let me find my way. Once they saw that I was starting to really put in the effort, and I was starting to shout at my mom, why she picked me up 10 minutes late from school because I've got 10 minutes of training now. I think that's when they started to go, hold on, this guy actually wants to race his bike. He's actually quite keen to do well. And then the support is always there. I think that's the biggest part for me is the support. It doesn't really matter. I was in a very fortunate position where I always had all the right stuff. My dad had a bike shop, so it was pretty. Yeah. I had easy access to good stuff. But my biggest advice would be to just be there for them, man. Because like cycling is a grueling sport. It's a tough sport, and there's only one winner. It's there's not 20 guys that can lift their hands. It's not a team sport. Although it's run like a team sport, there's always one guy who puts his hands up at the end. So I think you've just got to be there for them, support them as best you can. And it's not only about the equipment, like sure, it's nice to have good equipment, but I think at a young age, I think it's more the enjoyment of getting out with your buddies and riding that makes the difference more than fast wheels.
Daryl, Aaron Heineck has asked a question. I'm going to ask questions at the end, guys. Please keep putting your questions up. But because Aaron is our first ever full colors wearer in mountain biking, I'll let him get away with one. I don't know how personal this is, Daryl, but what was your watts per kilogram when you did your first FTP test? I mean, that's a technical one for you.
My first FTP test. That was I've forgotten. Yeah, that's such a long time ago. But look, like right now, my FTP, is riding at about 390 watts right now, and that's at about 5.5 watts per kilo. So, that's currently, when I'm in good shape, a little bit better, but that's currently where I sit with that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's while it's a high number, it's you've also got to realize that at a young age, which Aaron is, those numbers are very hard to come by at that age. It's this has been after 7 Tour de France's, after 10 or 12 years being professional. It's a long road to get there. Often you see a lot of guys trying to compare themselves to the professionals or whatever, but cycling is building up. Cycling is, you don't get from here to here all of a sudden. It's a very gradual process. Yeah. And once you start climbing the ladder slowly but surely, you do eventually get there. So, I mean, sometimes people look at the numbers and go, "Geez, wow, that's a lot. I'll never be a professional." But I always try and tell people that are training young kids and things like that, because a lot of them just see this magical number of 6 watts per kilo, and that's not the magical number. When I was probably younger, I could probably only manage, I don't know, 330 or something like that. I don't know what my numbers were there. We didn't have power meters when I was a junior or anything like that. So I don't really have a reference point there for you, but it's just something that you've built on slowly.
David Grace, who's Mrs. Grace's son, says Mrs. Grace sends her love, Daryl. So she's obviously watching. That's pretty cool. Daryl, back to some questions. A big part of your career, and we were following quite keenly. It was relatively early on. You had a really bad crash. Setbacks are part of cycling. Like you said, you're hoping that you can get a stage win. It very rarely happens. You've got to get things aligned. There's so many setbacks. Do you have any advice for the boys listening about how to deal with these setbacks? In particular, I mean, that was a career-threatening crash that you had.
Yeah, look, I think the first part about a setback, I think, is to allow yourself a little bit of time to soak it all in and understand what it's about. Then the second part is actually just to accept it. Nothing is going to change from there. I think you break your collarbone and you're thinking, gee, I was going to this race next month and now I can't go to that race, or I'm injured, but the sooner you can get back on track to realize, okay, you got to work it in blocks. The way I do it is I go, okay, listen, I've crashed. Okay, so they've given me 6 weeks that I can be back racing. Okay, and then I start making a plan. I think that's the biggest part about a setback is sure, you can have your time to mope about it and worry about it and, feel down about it. And you need to have that time. But the sooner you can go and set new goals and new ways and set up a new strategy for, okay, so I'm not going to be ready for that. What's my next goal going to be? Because if you don't set another target, and that's been the hardest thing for me, even now in lockdown, is we were building up to the classics and it was all going well. And I did a massive block before. And then it's boom, oh no, we're not racing anymore. And it was just okay, poof. And then I was searching for, all right, so when is the next start line going to be? And it just kept pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. So I've gone through this wave the whole time now, this whole lockdown. But now that I'm finally seeing there's going to be some start, now that's changed my motivation completely. So I think a goal setting strategy after any thing is if you fail your test, what do? You then have to go, well, okay, it's pretty bad, I failed my test, but okay, now you need to get back to the books and go, I need to learn. I need to do things differently, and I need to learn along the way. I think there's always, even if you don't get injured or something like that, you can make mistakes by training, by doing the wrong training, and you just need to be able to step back and look at it and go, all right, that's where I went wrong. Okay, I've realized it, and try not to repeat that.
Daryl, just talking about the professional peloton and the big stage races, talk to us a little bit about the pain that you feel in a big mountain stage where perhaps you've been forced to stick with the best for that stage or whatever it might be. You're doing your job, or maybe even it's a chance for you to win a stage. Talk about the pain that a cyclist, in particular, you go through, just to give the guys an idea. And I know it's a difficult question.
Yeah, there's a lot of, to win a bike race is you have to go deep. No matter what, there's no way you're going to get to the finish line having won a bike race without having gone at a point in that race where you've got to that point and you're suffering and you're hanging and hanging and hanging and you're thinking, I've just got to hang a little bit longer. And it's just about keep on going, really. It's about just putting your head down, going, I need to just stay as long as possible. Although sometimes your legs just give in completely and there is nothing you can do, then that's fine. That's also fine. You've given it everything. But a day that you specifically want to target or something, you need to dig deep. Like that day I won in the Tour de France, there was a point in the race where the guys were attacking up the climb and then they got away, a group of 3 guys. And I thought, I know I need to get there and it's going to hurt to get there. You have to kind of just accept that, what I'm going to do now, my body's going to hate me for it. It's going to be screaming at me. It's going to be telling me to stop. But mentally, you've just got to keep going till you get there. And I think that's the biggest part is there's been days on the bike in the big mountain stages which are like insignificant stages for me because I can't win on those days. But I've got a role to fill within the team, and after 10K, I'm out the back already. Like the group, the race has just exploded, and you're not even there to do your job, and you suffer the whole way through the day, and you just go through all these emotions, and you just need to keep pushing. The Tour de France is just a race of just keep pushing. We all get tired we all get tired. Everybody the first week is all talking and carrying on and blah, like got all this energy to fight in the peloton. By week 3, we're all just on our hands and knees, and there's a few guys that can race. There's not many of us that can go, I'm going to go for a big one today. I'm not scared to lose, So the tour really pushes. I remember being on Col de Tourmalet in my first Tour de France, and I nearly never made it. Like I got dropped, and we were a group of 3, and I could not push anymore. But the wheels were in front of me. I'm just following the wheels, going, I need to stay. I was nearly in tears, like on the bike, like riding, but like nearly in tears on the bike, And I remember finishing the stage, and I thought, what an achievement to actually finish today. If I go home tomorrow because I didn't, the achievement for me was I actually rode through all that pain for 160K. I got to the finish line. If tomorrow I've got no legs, well, the tank is just empty, And I remember sitting in the bus still with my helmet on, and like, they said, are you going to shower? And I just said, man, just drive. I'm too tired to do anything. You are so physically exhausted that it's so grueling, but it all ends, like it all stops. Then you get to the Champs-Elysees, and people are, we finish the race, and you forget that you've just done 3 weeks flat out, and you're there, and you're like, now it's the party at night, and you're having a few drinks with your mates, and you're just carrying on, and you're like, oh, geez, wasn't so bad, But the Tour de France it's a different beast. Like cycling in general, I think even in my career, there's been points, not only at the Tour de France, but even in the small races where, there's a point in the race where, geez, I just got to hang on this little bit longer here. And if I hang on over this hill here, all the sprinters are dropped, and I'm going to have my chance. I'm going to be able to beat these climbs in the sprint. So, yeah, I think it's just about suffering. It's a sport of suffering, unfortunately.
Daryl, on talking suffering, Matthew Schneider, who's a bit of a nut himself, he runs 100 milers and all sorts of stuff. He says, what's been the toughest stage in the Tour de France or any race that you've experienced, and why was it so tough? I mean, is it the stages that you've won where you've had to hang in, or is it the stages where you've been spat out the back and you've got to survive?
I think the one of the hardest stages, I can't remember which, it was in my first tour as well. We finished the stage into was one of the Swiss little counties, and it was like a flat out from the start. It was pretty lumpy, so it was a breakaway day, but it was also my first Tour de France, and I was a bit naive to all of these. I didn't know how, lumpy day. I thought, I can climb all right, whatever. But the Tour de France is a different beast, because when you start the race, before they drop the neutral flag, there's even the fight. You guys don't even see it, but before we even take off, we're in the neutral zone, and guys are fighting for position behind the car, because when the car takes off, there's a little bit of like draft behind the car, and as they drop the flag, whoever's ever behind the car gets like a sweet draft for like just 10 meters or so, but they get like a bit of an advantage, and we start attacking. And this particular day just carried on for about 100K, up, down, left, right, through little towns, up, and the group was just together and was just strung out the whole day. And a couple of us got dropped and came back and dropped, and but now it's a time cut in the Tour de France. So because it's not a big mountain stage or anything, the time cut is shorter. So now we only have 15 minutes to be behind the winner, and like Chris Froome and Brad Wiggins and them are going off the front. But now we've been dropped, but we're in a small group, but we can't have the luxury of just cruising to the finish. So we have to keep riding. We caught the next group, which then was chasing another group, which was chasing another group, because we know there's going to be a bit of safety in numbers. So there was about, I think our gruppetto that day was about 80 guys.
Because you were one of the young guys, you're probably having to do a lot of the work.
Yeah, I was one of the young guys, but I didn't do much work that day either, because I was just so like, I started near the back at the start already, where the older guys had told me, stay near the front today. It's narrow roads, and I was kind of like at the back talking to my mates, and then I got caught out big time. But you learn those lessons. But then at the finish line, so coming up to the finish line, they always have a timer then. It says like horse delay. So it tells you how much time you've got before you get eliminated from the race. So we were coming up for like a K to go, and it was like no one could see, but we had heard from the team class, you guys have got like 2 minutes or whatever. So we went, oh, it's uphill. We better like hustle here. So we started like pushing on, and 2 or 3 guys, Pataki and some of the big sprinters were like, we're in groups, so we're in safety numbers, it's all okay. And I remember crossing that line, I was like in sprint mode for the gruppetto, just to stay on the wheel, because I knew if I lose the gruppetto, we're not safe. If you're just 3 guys at the back, they're going to say, no, you guys are out the race. And Pataki thought, he's bigger than the race. Like, it's just going to roll in the last, K. And they eliminated him out the race. So for me, that day, like crossing that finish line, I was totally spent, and it was just to finish the stage. And then
I suppose the viewers don't get to really find out about those days, and it's been awesome hearing a bit of that insight. Daryl, one or two more questions on the tour, and then we'll probably get to some of the questions on the side there. You're a great all-rounder, and that's certainly what you become known as. You're obviously, I was trying to work out how old you are, and I know that you're 2 years older than me, and I was shocked at how old I am when I figured that out. So you're 36 now, is that right?
Turning 36 in December, yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're still 35. There we go.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not too bad. What would you say your best role is at the moment within a team, and what do you think your future is in terms of that role?
Look, I think I've always in this team, and I think because of the teams I've ridden for in the past, easily I've seen how you can get like flicked out of a team, or how you can, they can replace you with someone. Yeah. In this team, I've tried to make myself irreplaceable. I've tried to make myself in a situation where I know if I go to this race, they can count on me to do climb and time trial and this. So that's like ticks all the boxes. And I've always prided myself on trying to do something like that, and trying to make the team, and carry lots of value. Try and make myself reliable. When the team asks me to do something, make sure I do what they ask me to do, plus more if I can. I think that's always been a big thing, is trying to go the extra mile in the team. And that's stood me really good in this team, because there's someone who's valued riders like, and I think although a lot of people say, geez, if Daryl specialized in one thing, maybe he'd be really good at that. But I think there's nothing wrong with being, good at everything, not being the best at everything, but being able to fill those things. Because you've got to realize a team signs lots of good riders, and they have a sprinter. So they're never going to choose me as the number 1 sprinter, because I'm not the best sprinter. He's better than me. And I'm not the best climber, because he's a better climber. But they need someone that's willing to sacrifice themselves for those guys at that pointy end of the race, which is right near the end. That's been a huge asset, I think, to the team. And that's something I've always I'm going to take pride in that. Like, although I'm not the guy who always lifts my hands up at the end, I think a lot of the times people have also looked back at the guys who have won those stages or won those races and gone, hey, Daryl was there. He was the last guy there. And I've got a lot of good publicity from that too. And people say all-rounder, but, before people used to be like,
sorry, that's how you got the yellow jersey. I mean, you're a lead-out man for a few of the sprints. You actually find yourself finishing 7th on every stage, and you got yourself into a good position.
Yeah, that particular tour, there was just stage positions. So because I was doing my job and I was finishing top 10 in the stage in the tour, then it was easy to like get into the jersey, because if you added my stage positions up, it was so little compared to someone who, let out 15 or 20K to go, and they were 100 positions behind. So it's also opened up a few doors, like you say. It's definitely, and we're seeing it now in sport, is a lot of teams are now starting to value guys that are more domestics, or guys that are willing to sacrifice themselves for the number 1. You might not be the number 1, but you also need to realize like you aren't the number 1. So then you need to make yourself the best number 2.
Yeah, well, just to clarify to some of the young guys listening, I mean, you're talking about not being number 1, but to be fair, you've won the Tour of Turkey, you've won the Tour of Alberta. You have a love affair with Australia. You've been part of their teams, and you've won the Tour Down Under twice. You've won the South African Road Race twice. You've done a lot. So it's not like you've never been the number 1. And I think the teams do give you a chance in certain tours to go and lead out and try and win.
Yeah, it's as I've grown in the team, and I've also seen myself it's hard. It's not hard to accept, but when you're in a position of always sacrificing yourself, when you're right at that pointy end of the race, when you're like, gee, I pulled off like 200 meters to go, and then the guy won, and like, gee, it could have been different if I held. Maybe I would have had a good run today, or you sacrificed yourself and the teammates come third, and you go, geez, I was actually feeling pretty good. I might have beaten that guy. As many years have gone by, and opportunities I've seen, like, they're going to get fewer and fewer for me as I start getting older and probably slower. I kind of put my hand up to the team and said, listen, I want to take a bit more pressure. I want to have a bit more responsibility. And it was just at that moment when Simon Gerrans was leaving, Michael Matthews was leaving the team, which was two guys that were very similar to me. And that kind of opened the door for me, because the team started going like really climbing orientated and sprint orientated. So it left that big gap in the middle for the all-rounder. And there wasn't, they'd got rid of our two best all-rounders. And I thought, well, here's the time. Here's the moment for me to stand up, put my hand up and go, I'll go. I'll have a crack at it. And that's where things kind of opened up for me. And the team started going, no, well, hey, if he puts his hand up, he can have a go. Let's support him. And I think because the youngsters in the team and the guys that have ridden for so many years, they've seen how many times I've sacrificed for others. To have those guys sacrifice for me and see how deep they went for me, I knew, okay, that gave me an extra, like, all right, these guys are relying on me. I better try my best.
Daryl, the headmaster, Mr. Jackson, makes a comment, and I think it's a good one. And he talks about Jeppe, but I think you can talk about South Africa as well. I know we've had guys like Robbie Hunter in the past, who I'm sure you looked up to. But from a Jeppe perspective, I'll just read what he said here. There's no doubt that Daryl's accomplishments and achievements as a Jeppe old boy have played a role in getting sports like mountain biking recognized as an official sport at Jeppe. You've definitely left a legacy. And I think that for the boys, they're able to say, there's someone who was just like us, came to the same school as us, from the same kind of neighborhoods that we're from, and he could make it. What are your thoughts on leaving a legacy like that, Daryl?
To be honest, it's pretty like humbling to hear things like, because I look at my career and I say, gee, Robbie Hunter was the catalyst in my career, no doubt. When he won his stage in the Tour de France, that's when the fire in me came out and went, I want to do that. I saw what it did back home. I saw how cool it was to like be recognized like that. I felt it, and that was my like, oh geez, I want a piece of that. And I think if I can do that, back home for some boys, or not only for Jeppe boys but for South Africans, youngsters growing up, I think that would be, I would hope someone would say, no, gee, when Daryl won the stage on the tour that year, wore the yellow jersey, that was something that like I thought, geez, I can do it. He came from the same school, or he came from from Glen Vista, where I'm from. It just, that would be fantastic. I think it's been great to be recognized. And I don't take it for granted either. I think, I know there's also a certain responsibility on me now, even to still, whenever I put on my kits or race and I'm on TV, Tour de France, be it another race, I know that there's people, I'm always aware that there's people watching me. And I think that I also want to do my best. And that's really what it is.
Yeah, 100%. Daryl, you're really humble. You're a bit of a superstar back here, and you should know that. Your yellow jersey that you've given the school is hanging proudly up, and it's certainly an inspiration for a lot of boys. Daryl, before we go to some of the questions on the side there, just for the boys' information, let's talk very quickly on nutrition and supplements. And we know the lure of cycling and the problems that cycling's had in the past with dodgy supplements and. Do you have any comments on the importance of nutrition and maybe what's the sort of stuff that you'll eat in a day when you're training for the Tour de France?
Well, the first big advice I'd give is no shortcuts to form. I mean, there's obviously the shortcuts that people know about, but the illegal ways. But there is no magic supplement you're going to buy off the shelf there that's going to go the USN, what do you call it, Biogen, all these things. While they can assist you in with drinks, electrolytes, things like that, the 99% of bike riding, or not 99%, probably 90% of it is training, and training right and correct, and then also putting in the correct fuel. If you run your body on if you run your car on substandard petrol or diesel, it's not going to run very well. And it's the same with the cyclist, the same with the person, that the fuel you put into your body is the most important. So if you go and have a couple of beers the night before a race, it's not going to be good. If, you know, you need to live the lifestyle. You know, a particular day for us in the Tour de France is, you know, or in any race is wake up, we have either rice and an omelette. You know, so it's not like, it's not a piece of toast and this and that. We try and eat as plain as possible, just because your body digests quicker. It's easier for the body to digest. So anything that's quite easy to digest is good for your body. You know, simple things like riding a bike. Like people think, geez, bars and gels and all these things. Like most of the time, the pros we take a gel for like the end bit of the race, but during the race, it's really like savory things like you know, we make little rice cakes, or we make little bread rolls with jam in them, or ham or cheese in them. You know, there's so many. A lot of younger people and everybody think, geez, you see this advert of this professional athlete and he looks ripped and he's got this special product. But the reality of it is that those things are half the time, the things that they're showing you on TV are also not very good for you. I think the supplement world needs to be really regulated a lot more than what it has been, especially for youngsters. And I think at any level, supplements is not something that's going to win you a race. It's really not. I think you need to do 90% of the thing correct. Training right, eating right. Then your little 1% is coming off. Okay, am I sleeping well? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Okay, let me try and, you know, get a lighter bike, or, you know, faster clothing, but the base element of it is, you know, a lot of people think, geez, I'm going to train less, but I'm actually using this product, that's going to help me go. And that's there's no shortcuts. I can promise you that. And what I will say to the youngsters is, don't be fooled at things that you see on the shelves there that hasn't got this in, hasn't got that in, because, you know, if you get tested or something like that, the onus is on you. It's a very, very ugly world to be in if you do fall on the bad side of that. So I would recommend that, you know, I would stay away from products like supplements at the moment anyway. Even in our team, I mean, we don't even use supplements. I don't even use supplements. I use some stuff just for riding, you know, just in the bottle. But I don't use like all these vitamins and everything. We try to get that from our general food that we eat. You know, unless you're really depleted or your body can't get that, then it's maybe something you need to look at. But you know, to self-diagnose yourself that you need all these supplements is also.
Daryl, I know your old man owns a bike store, so he won't like you saying this. But of course, if you walk into a bike shop, the guys are going to try to sell you stuff as well, and they're going to tell you need X, Y, and Z to get through. But I think it's wonderful advice for the boys who think there is a magic potion that's going to get them through, where it really is just real hard work and just being smart about it. Daryl, we're nearly done. I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions. I see some guys, there's just speed questions. You can give me just maybe a one-word answer. Your cycling role model growing up?
Oof, geez, there were so many, but you know, Miguel Indurain was a huge one. You know, I loved that. He was one of the bigger boys. You know, and even to this day, probably why he's become more famous for me or better for me is because I've been in the pro cycling world and nobody speaks a bad word about him. So Miguel Indurain was a big one.
Then it's a bit of a strange one, but in the peloton, there's a bit of aggression sometimes. The rider you feared the most in your career?
The rider I fear the most is probably Peter Sagan, because he can do so many things on a bike which I can't, and I never know what his next move is. So probably Peter Sagan.
Favorite race or stage? We've asked you your toughest one. Favorite race or stage?
Look, I love racing Tour Down Under, no doubt. It's a special race for me, and it's an important race for the team. But the Tour Down Under is my best race of the year.
Your favorite riding partner? Someone that you've teamed up with really well?
Yeah, you know, I think my dad was probably the best. My dad, my dad and my brother, to be honest, like, because they were where I started, and even now, if I get a chance to ride with him back in South Africa, it's special. You know, you don't get that often. So yeah, those two.
You have to slow down a bit for them, Daryl?
Slow down for them for sure. It's now me towing my dad around.
And in the professional ranks, I mean, is there anyone that you've just clicked with that you maybe have led out for, or anyone that's just really worked successfully?
Look, I think probably the guy I connected with the most was probably Simon Gerrans, who was probably the guy that we were so like-minded. I think probably the two of us together was probably one of the best combinations we've seen.
Well, you guys won a few stages together.
Yeah. It was a good relationship. Someone actually compared us to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, which was
there we go. And your best bike brand. It's probably an unfair question. You probably have to say that.
Well, I've been on Scott for the last 9 years, so it'd have to be Scott for sure.
Daryl, my sort of closing thought or question before I ask you to give some advice to the boys. I mean, I've tried this cycling thing. We run a bit in that. It's such a hard sport. It's unforgiving, and you guys have to do it every day. I suppose you're out on your bike today. You have to do it tomorrow. Bronwyn Kemp, our head of culture, actually asked a nice question about the mental side of things. How do you get up every morning? And sometimes it can be boring. Let's be honest. How do you motivate yourself to do this? It can be boring, and it can be very hard. How do you motivate yourself to this day in and day out?
And yeah, look, it does get harder and harder, especially as I've got older with the family and things like that. It becomes more challenging. But look, the days that are really bad on the bike, that the weather's bad outside and it's really gloomy, I just go, my motivating factor is the team is paying me for this, so it's okay. I need to do it. It's my job. Then the days where I don't feel like doing it, I just think of my family and think, well, I'm doing it for them. You know, I'm actually, they're relying on me. My wife has given up, her career, and the kids are living in Spain, where they obviously prefer to live in South Africa. Everyone's giving up so much so that I can pursue my dream. So that motivates me. And then, then there's the other side is when I know I'm going to a race that I'm going to target. It's the winning that motivates me. It's the going into the race knowing I'm ready that motivates me. But I'm not going to lie to you and say that every day I wake up and I go, geez, I love to ride my bike. I love riding my bike. It's I've loved riding my bike this last period because I've had no goals, and I've actually just been able to like stop and chill outside and just soak up the scenery. But there's days where I hate riding my bike too, like where I know I've got efforts, but then it's also, you look at it from a professional side and say, well, it's my profession. I'm also able to do something that I love, although this is not it. Today is not the day for it, but I know there's going to be a reward for doing what I've just done. That's kind of what probably motivates me for the next time. You go, well, I know if I tick this box, I won't be having a sleepless night at the race thinking I should have done this effort.
Daryl, in closing from me before I end the recording and ask some questions, do you have any advice for the JP guys? The young guys who might have big dreams in cycling, do you have any advice for them? And maybe what would you say to a 14-year-old Daryl Impey?
Yeah, I think the biggest bit of advice I can give is probably just to know that you need to be able to sacrifice and to block out the noise. If you really want to make a profession of it, if you really want to make a go of it, you have to be willing to sacrifice the partying out with your friends. When I was at JP, I never used to go to these big social gatherings that we had, or things on the weekend. Guys were talking about they went to Eastgate and all hung out there and all these things. Where I never did that, and I'm not sad I didn't do it. Look, now I think back to you, maybe I missed out, but I think you have to be willing to sacrifice for your goal. If you've got that drive and that passion, and you're willing to put things down to focus on it, that's what's going to make you be the best you are. Because nobody can tell you can't be someone. I think I remember being at JP. I remember guys just going to me, Impey, go ride your bike. That was the main thing that guys used to do. That was the chirp, hey, Impey, go ride your bike. It was like this little thing. And I loved racing my bike. I loved riding my bike. And, I think I just kind of blocked that out and was just like, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to give it my best. And win, lose, or draw, I know I've pursued what I want. So I think it's about pursuing your passion and then, blocking out that noise and going for it.
That's brilliant, Daryl. Thanks so much. Just officially, we're going to go to some of the side questions now, but just officially, I think it's been insightful. The JP community is really proud of you. I don't know if you know that enough.
No, I do know that. Yeah, definitely.
We really are, and there's not too many old boys that have achieved what you've achieved. We had Jake White the other day. He's won a World Cup, but for someone to have done what you've done from a South African context, it is massive, and we really, really are proud of you. And thank you. I know.
Great, thank you for having me. And it's great to be linked up to JP again. I think for me it's really awesome just to see that like the school is how much they appreciate, because I do get the messages, I do get the feeling that JP is proud of me, and that's really special. So